My name is Mary Lee Beauchesne. I'm 34 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who fixed things: systems, processes, broken workflows, broken deadlines, and too often, broken family messes. I specialize in operational efficiency, the art of turning chaos into order. Companies pay me well to clean up disasters, but when the disaster belonged to my own family, the cost wasn't money. It was pieces of myself I never got back. I grew up in Phoenix, where the summers scorched the sidewalks, and my father, Marcus Beauchesne, built one of the largest construction and supply businesses in the Southwest. He used to say Phoenix's growth was his playground, miles of desert becoming subdivisions, strip malls, and office towers. He started the company in 1987 with one truck and a rented garage. By the time I graduated from Arizona State, it was a multi-million-dollar operation. Everyone likes to romanticize family businesses. Words like legacy, heritage, next generation get thrown around a lot. But no one ever talks about the fractures, the quiet favoritism, the invisible hierarchies, the child born to inherit, and the child born to work twice as hard for half the recognition. For us, the fracture had a name: Talia, my younger sister by 3 years. Talia wasn't book smart, but she had something my father worshipped: charm. She lit up rooms, floated through life on instinct and improvisation. Meanwhile, I built inventory systems out of color-coded bins when I was 10. Dad used to laugh and call me his little engineer, but it was Talia he praised at every family gathering. She's a natural leader. She connects with people. She's going to run this business someday. And what was I? The smart one who would go make her own fortune somewhere else. Translation: not the daughter he wanted for his empire. One memory has stayed with me like a stain that won't wash out. I was 14. Talia was 11. Dad asked us to reorganize the workshop behind the garage, just a weekend task. I drew up a layout, labeled drawers, made a spreadsheet on our old family computer showing where everything would go. Saturday morning, I spent 6 hours sorting bolts, measuring shelf space, arranging tools by frequency of use. Talia came in after lunch, hung a few decorative signs she'd painted: girl power, boss babe, this is my workshop, then ran off to meet her friends. On Sunday, Dad walked in, looked around, and his face lit up. Oh, wow, Talia, this looks so professional. He barely glanced at the labeled drawers, the reorganized bins, the new system that actually made the space usable. He hugged her, not me. That set the tone for our entire lives. Talia got credit for style. I got ignored for substance. By the time I finished college with straight A's and a degree in industrial engineering, while juggling 3 internships, Dad barely attended my graduation. But when Talia got her first leadership award from a high school club with 6 members, he threw her a barbecue celebration like she'd been named governor. I learned early. In my family, effort didn't matter. Perception did. I built my own life far away from them. My career took off quickly: management roles, consulting work, optimization projects across several manufacturing companies. I had a home I loved, financial independence, and a boyfriend, Evan Ross, who understood me better than anyone ever had. Evan once told me, "You carry your family's weight like it's your job, Mary Lee. Maybe it's time to put some of it down." I didn't listen, not then. Because no matter how far I moved, emotionally or geographically, I remained tied to Phoenix by an invisible thread named obligation. And then everything changed. It was Thanksgiving 2019. Dad looked old, older than his 58 years. His hands shook slightly when he carved the turkey. After dinner, he pulled me aside into his office, the door clicking shut behind us. "Merrily," he said quietly, "I need your honesty. What do you think about the business?" My heart tightened. I'd noticed things: late invoices piling up on the family desk, trucks sitting idle more often than they should, and Talia's increasingly vague comments about trying new strategies. "What has Talia told you?" I asked. "That everything's fine. Says the industry is going through a rough patch." A rough patch, right. The construction sector in Phoenix was booming. If they were struggling, the problem wasn't the market, it was them. I hesitated, but Dad pressed further. "Look, sweetheart, I know you're good at these things. Just tell me the truth." It was the first time in years he'd asked for my expertise, not Talia's instinct, not Derek's charisma, mine. Against my better judgment, I pulled up the company's financial statements on my laptop. What I saw made my stomach drop. Labor costs up 40%, revenue up only 8%, cash reserves dwindling, asset purchases that made no operational sense. And then there were the choices. Talia had replaced functional delivery trucks with flashy premium ones, twice the operating cost. She'd hired her husband Derek as fleet coordinator, paying him $45,000 to schedule trucks their dispatcher already handled. Inventory was a disaster. $200,000 of materials aging on shelves while basic supplies ran out weekly. Dad, I said slowly, you don't have operational problems. You have leadership problems. His face fell. Can you help us fix it? I should have said no. I should have let him hire an outside consultant. I should have kept my boundaries intact. But he was my father, and something in his eyes, fear, maybe regret, broke me down. Yes, I whispered, I'll help. I didn't know it yet, but agreeing to fix the family business would become the biggest mistake of my life. A mistake that would cost me time, money, relationships, and the last pieces of loyalty I still had left for them. Because while I was preparing to save everything my father had built, my sister and her husband were quietly preparing to take everything from me. I took 2 weeks off work in December, thinking it would be enough to diagnose the problems and stabilize them. I was wrong. I knew it the moment I stepped into the warehouse. Dust settling on unused pallets, expensive new trucks parked like ornaments, workers standing idle because no one knew what had been scheduled or canceled. Chaos doesn't whisper, it screams. And this was a scream no one else in my family seemed able or willing to hear. Talia greeted me with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marilee, finally, we really needed your structure. Structure. That word used to be a compliment. Now it felt like an insult dressed in glitter. Her husband, Derek, appeared behind her, wearing a company polo that looked like it had never seen actual labor. He extended a hand with the confident smile of a man who believed charm could replace competence. Glad you're here, Marilee, he said. We've been handling things, but I think you'll help us, polish it. Polish? The business wasn't tarnished, it was corroding. Still, I nodded. Let's start with the financials. We moved to Dad's office. The moment the door shut, Talia's mask slipped. Just so you know, she said, Dad's been overwhelmed. Derek and I stepped up, but we all have our strengths, right? Her tone was light, almost rehearsed, and suddenly something clicked. She wasn't worried about the business. She was worried about me being here. Worried I might actually expose the reality she'd been painting over with curated confidence and fake projections. I opened the books, and everything spiraled from there. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Talia had ordered specialty concrete additives designed for cold weather construction in Phoenix in July. $12,000 worth of inventory they'd never use. Derek had hired 6 of his friends, customer experience reps, who spent their days calling clients with lines like, just checking in on your gravel satisfaction. One contractor told me, your sister's husband keeps asking if I want to elevate the emotional tone of my cement order. What does that even mean? I didn't have an answer. What I did have was a clear picture. The business wasn't failing because of a rough market. It was failing because Talia ran it on intuition and Derek ran it on vibes. Meanwhile, Dad was drowning quietly under the weight of their choices. I stayed late into the night, reviewing supplier contracts. When I left the warehouse at 1 a.m., the sky was black and silent. My phone buzzed. Evan. You're still there, aren't you? He asked gently. Yeah, I sighed. It's worse than I expected. He was quiet for a moment, then said, just don't lose yourself in this. They made the mess. It's not your job to bleed for it. But it was, wasn't it? At least in my father's eyes. In Talia's eyes, it was more complicated. She didn't want my help. She wanted the credit. Over the next 6 weeks, I rebuilt everything. Inventory system, supplier relationships, training programs, routing algorithms, workflow charts, an actual operational strategy, not a Pinterest board of ideas labeled innovation. And slowly the business began breathing again. Drivers no longer zigzagged across the city aimlessly. Orders were fulfilled on time. Suppliers returned Dad's calls instead of redirecting him to collections. Profitability stabilized. For the first time in months, Dad looked hopeful. He put a hand on my shoulder one afternoon. You're my miracle worker, he said softly. I don't know what I'd do without you. I wanted to believe him. I wanted that sentence to mean what it sounded like. But then came the next line. Your sister told me she's thrilled with how her strategies are working out. I froze. What strategies? Oh, he said, the new workflow, the warehouse reorganization, the digital documentation. She said it was all part of her vision. All of it. Every hour I'd spent, every system I'd implemented, Talia had put her name on it. My throat tightened. Evan's voice echoed in my mind. Don't lose yourself for people who refuse to see you. But it was too late for that. Dad called a family meeting the following week. I assumed it was to formalize my role. I should have known better. When I walked into the conference room, Talia and Derek were already seated, with printed handouts, a laptop hooked to a projector, and the smug confidence of two people who thought presentation mattered more than reality. Talia tapped a slide titled, Strategic Organizational Realignment for Sustainable Growth. My stomach dropped. Derek leaned back in his chair. We wanted to show you our plan moving forward. Our plan. Talia clicked to the next slide. Phase 1, transition merrily to advisory role. My heart pounded. Dad shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. Merrily, Talia began, voice dripping false sympathy. We value your contributions, but you're better suited for big picture guidance, not day-to-day operations. Derek added, You've got your consulting career. You don't want to be tied down here, right? They hadn't even finished stealing my work before they pushed me out. And compensation? I asked quietly. Dad cleared his throat. Family doesn't charge family. I stared at him, and the man who had taught me to build, to work, to earn. The man I had just saved from losing everything. A man who still couldn't see me. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not violently, just quietly. Like a bone that had been fractured so many times it finally gave way. I stood, collected my bag, and walked out without a word. Only one thought echoed in my mind, steady and cold. They think they're pushing me out of their business. They don't realize they're pushing themselves off a cliff. Because instead of rebuilding their old broken systems, I had created entirely new infrastructure, licensed through my consulting company. Infrastructure I legally owned. Infrastructure they couldn't operate without. And they had just terminated the agreement that gave them access to it. They didn't know it yet, but their strategic realignment had just triggered the downfall of everything they believed was theirs. I didn't cry when I walked out of that conference room. Not when Dad looked everywhere but at me. Not when Talia smiled that tight, triumphant smile. Not even when Derek thanked me for my service, like I was some temporary intern they were graciously releasing. No, the tears didn't come then. They came later, when I got home and sat alone at my kitchen table, fingers still trembling from the anger I didn't allow myself to show. Evan found me like that. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He wrapped his arms around me, and I collapsed against him. Not because I was weak, but because I was exhausted from years of being the strong one for a family that never held me in return. When I finally managed to speak, my voice was a whisper. They pushed me out, Evan. They're taking credit for everything, even Dad. He let them. He brushed a tear from my cheek. You saved them, and they betrayed you. I wish I could say I'm surprised. I shook my head. I should have known. I should have seen it coming. No, he said firmly. You shouldn't have expected betrayal from your own father. But that was exactly the problem, wasn't it? Somewhere deep down, a part of me had expected it, because this family had always shown me exactly where I stood. That night, I made a decision that would change everything, quietly, legally, and irrevocably. My consulting agreement with Dad wasn't symbolic. It wasn't a friendly handshake. It was a real contract, one I drafted with clauses for intellectual property, licensing rights, and system revocation. Dad signed it without reading past the first page. Not because he trusted me, but because he assumed my work belonged to him. But the contract said otherwise. I spent the weekend preparing everything. Every system I built, every database I hosted, every routing algorithm I created, every supplier relationship I personally renegotiated. All of it connected back to platforms and software licensed through my consulting firm. All of it was legally mine. All of it could be revoked with 30 days' notice. And they had triggered that clause the moment they reassigned me. Sunday evening, I sent 3 letters. To the company, terminating my consulting engagement and revoking all system access effective immediately. To suppliers, informing them I was no longer their point of contact and they should clarify future arrangements with new management. To key clients, politely announcing my new independent consulting firm and offering my services. No threats, no accusations, just facts. By Monday morning, the first cracks appeared. At 10:04 a.m., Talia called. Her voice was shrill. Merrily, the inventory system signed us out. Nothing works. It's no longer licensed to your company, I said calmly. Your leadership team ended my consulting agreement. You can't do that. We need access. You should have considered that before you pushed me out. Derek grabbed the phone. This is sabotage. No, this is contract enforcement. But we can't run the business without those systems. I paused. Then, you should have thought about that before you decided I was replaceable. I hung up. 5 minutes later, Dad called. 6 missed calls. 9, 12. I didn't answer any of them. Because there is a moment when the child in you stops begging to be understood, and the adult finally stands up. By Wednesday, 3 clients contacted me directly. Morrison Development's project manager said, Talia quoted us prices that make no sense. We'd rather work with you. Another contractor said, I hear you're doing independent consulting now. Thank God. Your sister tried to upsell me on cold weather cement in Arizona. Word spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, the warehouse descended into chaos. Without my routing algorithm, drivers returned to zigzag routes that wasted fuel and hours. Without my inventory system, they couldn't locate basic materials. Without my supplier agreements, prices jumped 25–40%. Without my training protocols, new hires had no structure. And without my support, the entire operation cracked open. Workers quit, clients complained, deadlines slipped, and social media caught wind of Derek's premium branding campaign, photo shoots of trucks while orders piled up unfulfilled. Talia posted an Instagram story with the caption, Running a family empire isn't for the weak. People commented, Empire, honey, where? Dad finally reached me Friday night. Merrily, please, we can discuss a better arrangement. I don't want an arrangement, I said. You owe me $150,000 plus early termination penalties. Total, $220,000. He sucked in a breath. We don't have that kind of cash. Well, I said quietly, you had cash for Derek's salary, for new trucks, for social media consultants. You just didn't prioritize paying me. That's not fair. No, Dad, what wasn't fair was you nodding while Talia erased my work from history. There was a long silence. Then he whispered, We need you, sweetheart. No, I said, feeling the truth settle in my bones. You need what I built, and you threw me out the moment it benefited you. I hung up, and for the first time in my entire life, I felt powerful. Not vindictive, not triumphant, just free. Because they hadn't just pushed me out of the family business. They'd pushed me out of a role I'd never chosen but had fulfilled my whole life. The daughter who sacrifices, the daughter who fixes everything, the daughter who gets nothing in return. They didn't know it yet, but their ambush was the beginning of their collapse. And I was done saving them. In the month that followed, I didn't lift a finger against them. I didn't need to. The systems they once believed were just spreadsheets or Marilee's overcomplicated methods were the very skeleton of their business. And when a skeleton is removed, the whole body collapses. Their downfall began quietly, like a leak in the ceiling you ignore until the roof caves in. Week 1. The cracks. Without my routing software, drivers were back to the old ways. Whichever truck was free, took whatever order came in next. It was inefficient before. Now, with their expanded service area, it was catastrophic. Drivers called Talia nonstop. Which site do I hit first? Why am I delivering gravel to the west side when I was just there an hour ago? We're burning fuel like crazy. She panicked, threw together a priority board with sticky notes, and hoped no one noticed how often she moved tasks around just to look busy. They noticed. Customers noticed too. Then came the inventory disasters. A contractor showed up demanding 200 bags of Portland cement for a Monday pour. Talia confidently promised delivery Sunday afternoon. Problem: they had 0 Portland cement in stock. Solution: a last-minute emergency order from 3 different suppliers, all of whom charged weekend delivery fees and premium rush pricing. The $400 order became $1,800. Dad tried to spin it as exceptional customer service. The contractor laughed in his face and called me privately 2 days later. I don't know what's going on over there, but your sister told me you weren't involved anymore. That explains everything. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Sometimes silence says more than any victory speech ever could. Week 2. Derek's genius unravels. Derek decided the business needed a modern image. His big idea? Bright orange vehicle wraps featuring Talia's headshot. He spent $12,000 on trucks that now look like oversized traffic cones driven by people who wanted to be anywhere else. Contractors began calling them the Talia trucks, like it was a punchline. But Derek wasn't finished. He hired 6 of his friends to be premium account reps, who made scripted calls to long-standing clients. Hi, this is Brady, your personal supply concierge. Have you considered enhancing your gravel order with our deluxe decorative line? One client told me, I asked him if he knew the difference between number 57 stone and pea gravel. He said, I'm more of a big picture guy. Merrily, please tell me you're starting your own consultancy. Word spread. Fast. Week 3. The digital meltdown. Talia decided to take control of the brand narrative by launching a social media push. Instead of hiring someone competent, she delegated the entire campaign to her friend Megan, who had once run an Etsy shop for decorative mugs. Megan filmed Talia walking through the warehouse explaining different construction materials. She pronounced rebar as rebar. She called concrete mix a texture blend. She gestured toward bags of cement and said they had nice personalities. And then, in a moment of cinematic genius, she tried to drive a forklift. She hit a stack of drywall, panicked, and reversed into a pallet of tile. Megan uploaded the video with inspirational music. Within hours, the comments section was a demolition site. Is this satire? Who let Barbie run a construction company? My kids' Lego forklifts have more stability. The video hit 15,000 views before Talia deleted it, but the internet never deletes anything. Copies spread through construction groups like wildfire. Week 4. Collapse. Suppliers began pulling out. Truck payments lapsed. Fuel bills doubled. One of the delivery trucks, with Talia's face plastered on the side, was repossessed in broad daylight. The photo went viral locally. Dad called me that afternoon. His voice was thin, cracked. Merrily, sweetheart, please, just talk to me. I didn't say anything for a moment. Hearing him sound defeated hurt more than I expected. What do you want, Dad? We need your help. We're falling apart. Talia's trying. Derek's trying. But they don't understand operations the way you do. That's why you had me, I said softly. And you pushed me out. We made a mistake. I see that now. Please just come back and help us stabilize. I closed my eyes. Are you ready to pay what you owe me? The $220,000? He inhaled sharply. Merrily, we don't have that money. You know we don't. I know you had money for Derek's friends, for the warehouse move, for Talia's campaigns. You just didn't have money for me. That's not fair. No, what wasn't fair was you watching Talia take credit for my work and doing nothing. Silence. Then he whispered, I never wanted to lose you, Merrily. You did, I said quietly, the moment you chose her feelings over my contributions. I hung up and cried again, not out of sadness this time, but out of mourning for the relationship I finally admitted would never be what I deserved. That weekend, the severity of their downfall became impossible to hide. 3 clients broke contracts. 1 supplier filed intent to suspend service. A driver quit mid-route, leaving a truck in a Home Depot parking lot. And then the unexpected. Evan's ex-girlfriend, Jessica, who worked at a property development firm, emailed me. Merrily, we heard about the issues at Beauchene Supply. Are you taking on new consulting clients? I'd love to recommend you. There was no drama, no jealousy, no romantic entanglements, just a professional gesture from someone who recognized competence when she saw it. Funny how strangers could see what my own family never did. By the end of the month, Dad was behind on payments. Talia stopped posting online. Derek hinted he needed space to think and spent more time at the gym than at the office. Their kingdom wasn't just shaking, it was burning. And I was no longer trying to put out the fire. They'd pushed me out of the family business. Now they were learning what the business was without me. Just a house of cards collapsing in slow motion. Talia's collapse wasn't cinematic. It didn't happen with screaming or slamming doors or some explosive confrontation. It happened the way most disasters do, slowly at first, then all at once. By the start of month 2, the business was no longer wobbling. It was sinking. Suppliers cut them off for non-payment. Clients refused to accept bids because Talia kept quoting numbers she didn't understand. Payroll bounced. Trucks, bright orange with her smiling face, were repossessed one by one. One morning, a repo team came for the newest truck. Talia stood in the parking lot watching as a tow driver lifted the vehicle with her headshot plastered across the side. Someone filmed it. Someone laughed. Someone uploaded it. A dozen comments labeled it poetic justice. Hundreds more said worse. Dad didn't show up that day. He had stopped coming to the office entirely. Month 3 brought the breaking point. A major supplier called me, not them. Merrily, what's happening over there? Derek placed a $15,000 order and hasn't paid for the last 2 shipments. Another supplier emailed me angrily because Talia's friend in accounting told him she'd circle back, then blocked his number. Not my circus, not my monkeys, not anymore. But the calls kept coming. They weren't asking for me to fix the Beauchene family business. They were asking if I was available for consulting independently. The world, it seemed, had always known who the competent Beauchesne was. Except my family. Month 4 brought desperation. Talia tried calling. Derek tried emailing. Dad tried guilt. They all got the same response from me. Silence. Until one evening, Evan walked into the living room and held his phone out. "Your dad's calling me," he whispered. I took the phone, stunned. Dad never called Evan. His voice was thin, nearly broken. "Marilee, please, we're losing everything. The bank is threatening foreclosure. The insurance company dropped us. Talia's panicking. Derek isn't answering my calls anymore. His voice caught. "I don't know what to do." My heart tightened, but the part of me that once rushed in to fix things was gone. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want my daughter back," he whispered. "Not the consultant, not the efficiency expert. My daughter." I closed my eyes. "You pushed me out," I said softly. "And you didn't push me out when the business was fine. You pushed me out when I saved you." "I was wrong," he said, voice trembling. "I let Talia's ego blind me. I let Derek talk me into decisions I didn't understand. I thought you'd always be there, Marilee. I took you for granted." That truth cut deeper than any betrayal, because it was exactly what I had felt my entire life. But remorse doesn't undo damage, and regret doesn't erase choices. "We need $220,000 to pay you," he continued, "and we just don't have it." "Then take my offer," I said. "Sell the business to me for $300,000. I'll hire you as a consultant. You'll have steady income, and you'll walk away with more than it'll be worth in 3 months." He inhaled sharply. $300,000? Marilee, I built this business for 35 years. "Dad," I said gently, "in 3 months, the business will be worth nothing." Silence. Then he hung up. He wasn't ready to accept the truth. Some people never are until it crushes them. Month 5 proved me right. Talia stopped showing up to the office. Derek moved out, told her he needed a fresh start. He left her with 2 maxed-out credit cards, a half-functional warehouse, and a tidal wave of debt. Dad tried to secure a loan extension. The bank rejected him. Creditors circled. And then the call came at 6:17 a.m. on a Wednesday. "Marilee," Dad's voice broke. "The bank is foreclosing. The warehouse is gone. They're repossessing the remaining trucks. The inventory will be auctioned. It's over. Everything. It's all gone." I closed my eyes and inhaled slowly. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it, but not in the way he wanted. He wept softly. Not the angry tears of a man betrayed, but the quiet tears of a man realizing he had done this to himself. Not because he wasn't capable, but because he chose the wrong daughter to believe in. Talia disappeared soon after. She moved to Nevada, took an entry-level office job, and stopped posting her motivational quotes about leadership. Derek resurfaced on social media with a new girlfriend 2 months later, bragging about rebuilding his empire. An empire of what? I don't know. Delusion, maybe. Dad sold his house and moved into a small apartment. To pay the bills, he began driving for a rideshare service. People who recognized him sometimes asked, "Hey, didn't you used to own Beauchesne Supply?" He would answer quietly, "Yes, I made some mistakes. I never took pleasure in that. It just made me sad." 18 months passed. I built my consulting firm from the ground up, Evan by my side every step. I hired 2 analysts, then 3. We expanded to California, then Texas. Clients sent referrals faster than we could take them, not because I was vengeful, but because I was finally free. Then one afternoon, Dad called. "Marilee," he said gently, "I've been thinking a lot about everything. I know I hurt you. I know I didn't protect you from Talia. I know I should have valued you the way you deserved. And I'm sorry." This time I didn't cry. I didn't shatter. I didn't feel anger. Just a quiet acceptance. "I appreciate it," I said, truly. "Do you think there's any chance we could rebuild our relationship?" I hesitated. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but we can try, slowly, on my terms." He exhaled shakily. "I can live with that." A few weeks later, I saw Talia accidentally. She was at a cafe, wearing a plain blouse instead of her usual curated outfits. No cameras, no Derek, no entourage. Just a woman stirring coffee with a faraway look. She didn't notice me, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No anger, no desire to confront her, no lingering need for acknowledgement. Just peace. The kind you find after a long storm, not because it passes, but because you finally walk out of it. Some bridges don't burn in a blaze of fury. They crumble quietly, one betrayal at a time. And eventually, you just stop trying to rebuild them.